Howdy, folks. Got a different kind of video for you today. It's kind of an important day in my family history, and I want to share something that I've been holding on to for a long time. 5 years ago today, my mother died unexpectedly. She literally dropped dead at work, walking from her desk to go get her morning coffee. I was in Las Vegas at the time attending a convention. Got that phone call in the morning. At first, I thought it was a hoax or a phishing attempt, but no, it was real. And it was a very, very dark time, especially since I lost my father almost 20 years earlier, unexpectedly as well. He chose to check out. So losing mom was tough. I'm an only child, so everything was on me. And there's a lot of dynamics for all the only kids out there. You know how it is. For all the mama's boys, you know how that is too. And it was very, very hard. So after dealing with all the logistics, no life insurance, no health insurance, no will, and it was a mess. Let's put it that way. Had to get her from Texas, where we lived, back to Connecticut so she could be buried next to my dad. There's just a lot of things you got to do when it's not expected and there's no plans made. It's a very difficult, frustrating time. So, as one can imagine, I was pretty messed up about it. Great friends, my family, immediate family here in Texas, they just were fantastic and helped me out a ton, helped my wife out a ton, and my friends at work were all fantastic. My boss was great. I had a decent support system, which was great. But at home at night, that's when things got really difficult, and I couldn't sleep, and because it brought all the memories back when my dad left 20 years prior. So because I couldn't sleep, I decided I'm going to just write some music. I'm just going to play some piano and just kind of get my thoughts out, musically speaking, and with the goal of kind of bringing some closure. Because when you lose someone unexpectedly, there's no closure, there's no farewell, there's no goodbye, there's no I'm sorry, there's no questions you can ask, there's no answers you can give. It's just gone. Death is a horrible thing. It brings out the best in people. It brings out the worst in some others. That certainly happened with some of my family back in New England, but we won't talk about that. So it makes things difficult, and you got to figure out how to cope. And so for me, I was going to sit down at the piano and just try to clear my head and kind of get some thoughts out. When someone dies a slow death, as miserable as this may sound, I would much prefer a long goodbye than no goodbye. Those that get the chance to make amends, to reconcile, to do all the things you want to make apologies for, etc., you're blessed. And yes, if your relative suffered a horrible death, that I can't imagine that. I literally can't, because both my parents died unexpectedly. And both times I was out of town, ironically enough. But yeah, a long death, you get to say goodbye. In most cases, when you get something like, you start losing your memory, losing your brain, that's a bad thing, and people forget who you are, and it's tough. But you, as a person, have the chance to accept and adapt and come to grips with what's going to happen. When you don't have that option, it really can mess you up. So that being said, I sat down at the piano and I just did some improvisations, and they're all very, very ambient, very, very mellow. I had been listening to a lot of Nils Fromm, a very, very intimate, emotional piano player from Germany, I believe, or might be Austria. I think he's German. And he actually worked with native instruments to create a fantastic piano library called Noir. Noire, the French word for black. And it's a fantastic piano, and it's got all these mechanical noises, the pedal noises, the key noises. You hear the breath of the piano player. I assume that was Nils recording that. It's a unique sound. It's very mechanical, definitely not for TV use, because editors are like, what's that clicking? What's that stuff? And Noir also has this really cool feature called a particle engine that adds lots of effects, echoes. You'll hear it in the music I'm about to play. But I sat down with that and just wanted to get some musical thoughts out, clear my head of a lot of things. So I'm going to play a sampler. The album, I decided to release the album on our anniversary. So the album comes out today, April 9th. 2024, 5 years to the day after her death. And it's not joyful listening, it's therapy. It was me coping with her being gone. The Echoes of Her Absence is the album title. And some of it's really dark, but again, it's not like scary horror dark. It's emotional in the depths. For example, the first track on the album is called Hands Folded. What does that mean? When I saw her in the coffin for the first time, it's always weird to see someone in a coffin. Her hands were kind of folded. They do what they do, and her hands were just folded in a position that just seemed unnatural. It's one of the things that jumped out to me. Like, that's not, oh well, it is what it is. So hands folded is just my impression of seeing her in the casket for the first time. Because again, I was out of town when she died, so I was not there at the scene. I just, saw the end result. So that's Hands Folded, and it's based in C sharp minor. It's a tip of the hat to her favorite classical piece, which was Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. So that's in C sharp minor. The second one, track 2, is called Farewell, and that's meant to kind of indicate how I was feeling when I turned my back and walked away from the casket to the last time I would ever see her. So that's kind of that. Bicycle, track 3, that's kind of a flashback to when I was a kid learning how to ride a two-wheeler on the corner of Forest Lane and Spruce Street. I remember I got my bike and I took my training wheels off myself, and I remember riding down the street. It was a slightly downslope hill street, and then when I was successful, I started screaming, "Mom, Mom, Mom!" And I must have been sleeping bloody hell, because she came out of the back door and, "What's going on?" And then I said, I'm doing it," and she was very happy for me, and she smiled, and that's great, because she was just so bubbly. Mom was like Edith Bunker in many ways, and that was awesome. So Bicycle is about me learning to ride my bike. And the middle section kind of gets dissonant. That's when I crashed, but then Mom comes, picks me up, and dusts me off, and I get going again, and things are better. The Swing, track 4, is memories of me in my small backyard. We had one of those, A-frame aluminum swing sets with 2 single swings, a double-seated swing, and a slide that, usually broke in half after the first summer of use. And my dad, not being very mechanical, didn't really know about anchoring it. So when you'd swing, the poles would come out of the ground. So that's kind of my memories of the swing. I was in the backyard facing my house, in the back of my house, and then I could see the bushes, and my next neighbor's Portuguese family, Anthony next door, would grow grapes every summer for wine. He'd make port wine, and I could see that, and I still see that memory. So that was the Swing. Atonement, track 5, A minor. It's just making up for stuff. Atonement. What is atonement? It's forgiveness, apologizing. You can't get things back. You can just atone for your sins. And every relationship is unique. Every parent-child relationship is unique. And, you feel bad for things maybe you didn't say, or did say, didn't do, or did do. So, that was kind of there. Insignificance, D minor, the saddest of all keys, as they say in Spinal Tap. My mom was disrespected by a lot of people. She was, made fun of as being ditzy or an airhead. Again, more Edith Bunker stuff, and she was definitely not that. But many, many times in her life, she felt insignificant. I learned after her death from her coworkers at the call center she worked at that actually she was very, very strong, and she helped some people get through very hard times. And one of the things she told one of the girls there, who was actually considering suicide, you are not what they say you are. Don't believe the things they say. You are better than that. You are not insignificant. So that's that. Long Ago was just, track 7. Sometimes you wish you could just be a kid again. I think it was Toy Story 3, when the toys are given up, and, Andy's grown up, I believe, or older, and gives his toys away. A lot of guys struggle at the end of that movie emotionally, because you're kind of letting go of your childhood, becoming an adult with all the responsibilities. And boy, there's a lot of them as a responsible father and husband. And so, long ago, it was simpler. I had my bike, I had my train set, I had my models, I had my saxophone. So that long ago, it's kind of like looking back and kind of wishing you can go back in time and be that kid again. Hindsight, track 8. Hindsight is 2020, as I say. You think of the things you could have changed, the things you could have done differently. In hindsight, I wish I'd spent more time with my mother the weeks before she died. I'd been busy with work, things were going well, and I hadn't talked to her for about a week or so, or maybe 2 weeks. And she left me a voicemail on Sunday, and I was going for a business trip on Monday. She left me a voicemail and said, "Hey, haven't talked to you in a little while. Just want to see how things are going." And I was out running errands with my son, who was, I don't know, 13 at the time. It was 5 years ago. He was 16 at the time or so. We were doing stuff. And in hindsight, I wish I had picked her up when we were running those errands, because she would be dead the next day. So, hindsight's 2020. You can't change that. Early morning. This one is about her dedication to her job. She was dedicated to a fault to the jobs that she had, as she was dedicated to her husband, my father, to a fault. There's a lot of history behind that. I'm not going to go into it. But early morning, my mom, when my dad was struggling, manic depressive, alcoholic, unemployed for many, many years, in his basement doing art because he couldn't find a job, my mom had to pay the bills. And so she would get up early in the morning and she'd work at Fancy Bagels on Route 6 in the Farmington, Bristol area. And a lot of people from ESPN used to go there to get breakfast on the way in. Small little shop, really, really good bagels. Bagel sandwiches, it's a fantastic place. But she would be there and she'd open the store every day. She'd work 6 days a week. So she would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, dressed and go to Fancy Bagels. And not a single customer knew the crap she was dealing with back at the condo. My dad's depression, his alcoholism, all the stress. She always had her bubbly, happy face on her, making customers smile, known for her boisterous laugh. And so this is really about her just getting up every day and doing her thing. And then outsider, track 10. She often felt like an outsider. Again, not being respected, being dismissed, just not included in stuff. And so, yeah, that's just kind of where it's at. So 10 tracks. And the thing about these tracks, if you're still listening, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. These are all improvisations. None of these were composed. I didn't sit down and sketch anything. I just sat down and said, okay, I am really dark, seeing her in the casket, her hands folded a certain way, C sharp minor, because of Beethoven, go. And I just started playing. And I didn't stop. I just played a track, and I'd go until I felt that memory or that feeling was finished. And if I fat fingered something, I can go back, because after all, it's MIDI, so I can change notes or pull out glitches and fat fingered notes, etc. I didn't change song structure at all. I just cleaned up the things that were literally dissonant, that sound bad, and there's mistakes in there. So when I'm playing these songs, they're not to a metronome. I just used Logic, fired up Noir, and chose my particle engine settings that I wanted, and just started playing and see what I get. And there's pauses. The tempos are generally consistent. There's a lot of dirge-like slow stuff. Because remember, I didn't say this actually, so don't remember. I hadn't said this, but this is about 2 weeks after I got back from her funeral. So I'm still in the first few weeks of recovering from her death, not able to sleep, so I just got to get this out. I've got to pop this emotional zit. And so I'm just playing these streams of consciousness, musical things. You can hear when there's pauses between chords, if occasionally. It's not that bad, but it's like you feel something that's flowing and suddenly there's a slight delay. And it's like, that's me thinking, shoot, where am I going to go next? Am I going this way and going that way? And so this is just pure raw emotion, all improvisation, no sketching, no composition. That's why the form is different. I played a theme or a melody or something in the beginning. I try to remember it in the back half to give some kind of closure. But sometimes the melodies in the end were not the same as the beginning because, again, I didn't compose it. So it's an interesting exercise. It was very, very therapeutic for me. What I started doing then was listening to it before bed. But then I stopped because it is kind of sad. There's a lot of minor key stuff here. This music was not written for anyone but me. I never planned on releasing it, but I felt it's 5 years. I'm not putting this in a music library. I'm not looking to put it on TV. This is just me finally being willing to share a very, very personal, horrible experience by sharing the music that I created to get myself through that, with maybe the hope that someone's grieving, they've lost someone unexpectedly, whether it's a relationship or a death. This stuff will you make you cry, maybe it'll make you mad. Who knows? It's I'm just putting it out there. So it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes. You can find it. But this is actually the first project I've released that was just for me. And I'm sharing that, and if it's not for everybody, and you may not like it at all. You might just be morbidly curious to see what does a grieving son have musically in his head 2 weeks after he buried his mother. Well, this album shows you exactly what that is. This project did lead to something else. Again, this was meant to help me feel better, maybe help me sleep some. But then later, maybe a couple months later, I started, because I was in a musical funk. I couldn't write music. I was obviously for obvious reasons. I said, okay, I'm going to get myself out of this funk. I'm going to create some new music. I'm going to create calming, relaxing, peaceful music. Not this depressing death stuff, but something that's meant specifically to help people sleep, help them pray, help them meditate, help babies sleep, help animals sleep, who knows. And so I created this piano recording called Unwind. I just did it once, and it was a musical exercise because I wanted to play one song in all 12 keys, all major for the most part. The goal was to, why 12 keys? To find new things. People ask, how do you get out of a musical rut? Play something in a key you're not familiar with. Guitar players, don't capo it. Actually, try different chords, and try playing an A flat or F or B flat as opposed to E, A, D, G, etc. Piano players, if you're a decent piano player, you can play any key. But I said, okay, I'm going to create 12 tracks, and I'm going to have about 30 minutes of music. So that means each track is about 2.5 minutes. And so let's major key, C, go, record something. Improvisation, done. Let's go G. Next one, D. Let's go A, cycle of fifths, cycle of fourths. And I recorded 12 tracks. And that's called Unwind. Again, spontaneous improvisation on a felt piano. And I ended up doing 5 of those. So if you're looking for something that's not depressing, something that you want to help get to sleep with, check out my piano improvisation series called Unwind, volumes 1 through 5. They're also 30 minutes long because the sleep cycles are generally 90 minutes. You go from deep sleep back to light sleep. And so the goal is to have 30 minutes of music so that you can fall asleep and get into deep sleep and not be woken up by the music because it's still playing. So I've had friends use that, listen to it, and it does help them go to sleep. I make it 3 or 4 songs, and I'm usually asleep because it's calm. No transpositions, no tempo changes, no percussion. It's just everything's major key, very diatonic. And but that series was born of this, project for my mom, the echoes of her absence. So that being said, thanks for listening to me share with you this very personal situation. Hopefully you enjoy the music. Hopefully it touches somebody or helps someone cope. And check it out on Spotify, iTunes. I'm not trying to, make any money at this thing. It's just releasing some emotional stuff to clear my head and share with others. So here's a little bit of taste of the album. Hope you enjoy it, and thanks for watching.